in which we had been having a lot of conversations since morning. WorkVision 2021. And in this virtual conference, we are talking about its vision relating to HR in the new normal and beyond. So it's really interesting. Since morning, we had been juggling with all of the thoughts and doing a lot of brainstormings that how we can be prepared for our future and everything. So now in this session, which is the session two, I'm really excited about it because I know it is going to be really interesting. And in this session too, we are going to talk about emergence of the gig talent economy. This is a really talk of the town these days. So I'm glad that this subject is here. We are going to talk about the gig work has been around for a while, but with the adoption of new technologies and people working virtually due to pandemic, gig has become a norm and the people of gig workers have increased globally, that is for sure. We will understand in this session from the leaders of the organizations actively involved in gig workforce about a few of the things. We have got 3 points that we'll be focusing more: how they interact with and engage gig workforce, how our rewards and performance of the gig workers can be managed, and how they plan on reassociating with gig workers. So these are really big questions to answer, but I know that we have got the eminent panelists over here, the knowledgeable ones, so they are going to answer it, and hopefully we are going to pave a path for the people who can actually emerge into this subject. So, my dear friends, in this particular session, we have got the guests who are really eminent. We have got the President, HRM Corporate Affairs, SNV, Yono Minda Group, Mr. Anandi Sinha. Sir, welcome to you. And also we have with us Executive Vice President and Chief Human Resources Officer, Datamatics Global Services Limited, Dr. Reema Ghosh Chaudhary. Welcome, ma'am. Also, we have with us Director Staffing, Randstad, Mr. Yeshab Giri. बहुत बहुत स्वागत है सर आपका.
Thank you.
And for managing all these panelists and for taking out very impressive answers out of them, we have got the moderator of this session, who is the managing partner of Human Capital, Miss Neha Jain. So, Miss Neha Jain, a warm welcome to you in this session. So Neha ji is here joining us over here, and I would like to introduce her before handing over the mic to this moderator for taking out answers from our eminent panelists. Ms. Neha Jain is the managing partner of Human Capital, which is a leading HR magazine of India with the experience of more than 10 years. So it's like about a decade. And she is a postgraduate from Aston Business School, Birmingham. Her activities as sharp as a tact in training and development, evolution management and communication, organizational designs and development, and the list goes on. So if I'm going to read the whole list, I'm going to be here like all day. So my dear friends, please join me in welcoming the moderator of this session, the managing partner of Human Capital, Miss Neha Jain. Neha ji, it's over to you now.
Okay, thank you so much, Shilpa. Thank you so much for such kind words and the beautiful introduction that you gave. So good afternoon, everybody, and it is nice to have you here. And let's start the discussion. So, as you know, I'll start with. I might just repeat myself, as Shilpa said. I would like to start the session by introducing myself. I'm Neha Jain, and the managing partner for Human Capital magazine. Most of us already know about the magazine, but just for those who don't know, I'm proud to announce that we've completed the 25 years of serving the HR fraternity and would like to continue to do so for the upcoming years. Now, coming back to the WorkVision 2021, the topic for today's session is the emergence of gig economy talent. Before I jump into the details of today's interesting topic, I would like to take the pleasure of introducing our esteemed panelists more in detail. So, Mr. Anandi Sinha, President HR and Corporate Affairs, Uno Minda Group. He has 36 plus years of diverse experience in implementing human resource initiatives and aligning them with business goals of various organizations. Then we have Dr. Reema Ghosh Chaudhary as the EVP and CHRO who leads the HR functions globally for Datamatics. She has received multiple HR Excellence Awards, including the 50 Most Influential HR Tech Leaders 2015 at the World HRD Congress and Young HR Professional of the Year at the Asia Pacific HRM Congress 2009. And lastly, we have Mr. Yesab Giri, who is a director at Randstad Technologies. He has over 20 years of experience in strategic planning and execution in the HR service space. He is responsible for the expansion of Randstad India's value-added services, staffing services. Once again, thank you so much for taking out time today from your busy schedules and being here with me today. So to start this session today, I'm just going to do a bit of context setting about gig economy. Yeah. Hello?
Yes,
Hello?
you're audible, Neha.
Okay. So I hope I was audible before as well. Okay, great. I'm just going to start with a bit of context setting. What is gig economy and its benefits, and why is it so prevalent today? As Shilpa also mentioned, gig economy is about contractual working, flexible working, or even freelance jobs, involving and connecting with clients for a particular project or for a particular time period. It can benefit both the people and organizations both in a way. There are people who want to work for a particular time period or for a particular project, and organizations can also get cost benefits and other benefits by outsourcing for that particular project or for that particular time period. Specifically, coming back to the coronavirus pandemic, has shaken India's labor force market in a big way, shifting this focus from permanent employment to the largely to the gig economy jobs and workers. And this has contributed a lot in speeding the gig economy trend. Um, just the last point, according to the latest report by ASSOCHAM, India's gig economy growth is compounded with a rate of 17% and would reach $455 billion by 2023. So on this note, I would like to begin the session, and my first question is to Dr. Reema. Dr. Reema, what is your view on gig economy, and what are the pros and cons of gig culture for organizations and employees both?
Okay, thank you, Neha. And I would like to thank all the organizers as well for bringing up such a pertinent topic, which is, in a way, talk of the town. To me, this gig economy is a very unique work engagement, and essentially it's a result of a shifting cultural and business economy. So we have been facing a bit skewed demand-supply equation. While there is talent everywhere, but then the specific talent that we look for sometimes tends to be a bit scarce. So gradually we saw this emergence of this set of people for whom flexibility is very important. And incidentally, it's win-win because for corporates as well, there is the flexibility to choose from a pool of non-traditional talent for a specific time period. And of course, the provider also has the flexibility to devote that kind of time, that he or she wishes to devote. So no compulsions attached. And along with flexibility, I bring in the trust factor as well, since in the post-COVID world, work monitoring per se is lesser prevalent and dependence is more on defined productivity norms. So I see this as a good trend which is emerging.
Okay, and anything about, so in terms of pros and cons for organizations and employees both?
Oh, of course, there are lots of pros. I'll talk about the cons as well. So Neha, I was thinking about this conference, and I was thinking that I'll share a little bit about our own experience, Datamatics experience. And along came a thought that if I have to put an acronym for a phrase which is greater flexibility, immense possibilities, and greater agility. So that is GIG, gig for me. And the reason why I say this is pros, one is, of course, the flexibility associated. Also, it's a very asset light model. So when it comes to a project ramp down or anything, it becomes much easier to handle the workforce. So there's a lot of flexibility to the dynamic business requirements. In case there is a we can generate lots of leads through this talent pool. We get to know what's happening in the market. We have a lot of information about the changing dynamics of business. We get to know a lot of things from their professional network and connections. Of course, if the talent pool can be managed well with their due share of benefits, learning opportunities, etc., then we can definitely have a pool which we can nurture for future permanent opportunities as well. Now, of course, there are cons, and the biggest thing perhaps is some of the traditional age-old values that we have spoken about, which is stability, loyalty. So even though we are moving away from these terms to a great extent, but definitely how to embed this workforce into the overall cultural ethos of the organization, that does remain a bit of a challenge. In case of certain expertise levels, they come at a very high cost. For example, if I have to talk about a group company of ours, so when it comes to content editors, content writers, project managers, it can get very costly. Software professionals, of course, can be very costly. Stability is minimum. So sometimes they can be easy pick for competition for whatever period they're engaged with us. Of course, we provide the right kind of training, and that way they become easy resources for others. For them to adapt to the company's culture or the regional culture could be tough. So yes, there are cons as well. But overall, I see a movement which is happening towards, getting them integrated into the workforce. And one last thing that I would mention here, and here I would refer to the NASSCOM Aon study that was done in 2020. So that's the gig promoter score. So it had mentioned about the approach of organizations in general. So typically, there are a lot of them who employ average to high number of gig talent. And that's the zone of optimism that, yes, the demand will grow. There was a zone of realism where typically there are people with a low to average number, and they feel that this is the optimal number and probably we won't have demand more than this. And then there were companies in the zone of caution, where they would employ a low number of gig workers, and the general belief is the demand will not increase. So typically, as an organization, Datamatics is in the zone of optimism. So while we know the pros and cons both, we definitely feel that this is a trend that is here to stay.
Sure, sure. Thank you so much, Dr. Rima. So moving on to Mr. Yeshab, what are your views on gig economy culture, and how do you foresee this culture prevailing in the Indian scenario?
Thank you, Neha. Am I audible?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay. Thank you, and thank you for setting the context. Good afternoon to all. It's wonderful to be in this August gathering. I represent Randstad India, a global leader in HR services, a Dutch multinational that pioneered staffing and also celebrated 60 years last year. So it's important to start with what is the gig economy. I think there are many versions and variations about the gig because it's still in a very, very nascent stage, right? And maybe I'll add my opinion to what Neha, you started off explaining gig. For me, a gig economy is one where organizations rely mostly on freelancers and independent workers, contracted over a short-term basis than they do on the permanent staff, right? The word gig in this context will refer to maybe a one-off job that someone gets paid to do on a casual basis, right? Uh, Workers in a gig economy are more like entrepreneurs than traditional workers. While this could mean a greater freedom of choice for the individual worker in what he wants to attempt, what he wants to do, it also means that the security of a steady job with regular pay benefits, including retirement funds or social security, etc., and also a daily routine that generally, is a part of work for generations. It's becoming a thing of the past. Um, a recent study, conducted by, I think, Measuring and Keegan in 2019 suggested that gig working environment is characterized by three key actors here. One is the gig worker, also known as freelancers or independent contractors. Then you also have the requester, that is the client. And then you have the platforms in between that sort of help, the gig workers get job from the client and accomplish them. So how does a gig economy work? I think it's also one area that I probably just want to touch upon. And I see it's mostly on two kinds of work enabled by platforms. The first being cloud. Work can be done from anywhere as long as one has access to internet-enabled devices. So you could look at transcription, product cataloging, website designs as example of cloud work. The second could be geographically addressed work where information is received typically through a phone, but needs to be completed in a fixed place. For instance, food delivery or home services, or ride hailing or sharing services like we see in Uber and Zomato today. Coming to the gig economy per se in India, I think we're seeing a big rise in these jobs, both in the blue collar as well as the white collar segment. And I think with after pandemic, this has only accelerated the trend. A report that I read coming out last year said that I think companies are strategically also looking at redistributing their talent landscape across a mix of full-time, flexible, and also freelancers, right? And now with more and more development of technology, the gig models are also continuing to adapt, innovate, and expand beyond what we currently know. So today I think we see either asset sharing or service sharing or digital listing or marketplace management, right? I think it is going to go beyond that. And ASSOCHAM has projected India's gig economy to grow at a compounded rate of 17%, you mentioned, to reach about almost 455 billion by 2023. And in another estimate, almost 350 million gig jobs to be available by 2025. So I think that's a huge opportunity for job seekers to sort of capitalize and adapt to the changing work dynamics that we are seeing, right? Also, I think many reports also suggest that, uh, the gig economy could almost triple over the next 3-4 years for all of us. So I think over a long term, it is expected to contribute more than 1.5% to the GDP. And I think it is one economy that, though in a very, very nascent stage, it's very much here to stay and only grow at a compounding rate. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Mr. Yesam. Yes, you're right. It's going to add on approximately 1.7%, one of the reports said, to the GDP, India's GDP. So on this note, Mr. Anadi, over to you. What's your view on the gig economy culture and, its prevailing in Indian scenario? Yes.
Neha, the same question. If you have asked me before pandemic, my answer from the manufacturing sector would have been entirely different. Very honestly, we never thought gig type of functioning in our manufacturing setup. And this work from home used to be a taboo in our setup. If somebody asked for work from home, so it was only in the case of family way maternity cases we were allowing, especially only to those people for work from home. Nothing else we thought that is possible to do those things, and we can have a gig type of model which can be incorporated in our traditional setup. Traditional setup is a very close supervision, too much SLA driven, too much process driven, a very rigid type of setup. And manufacturing, because of the quality and the customer interface, we need to be more cautious on that. But this pandemic has changed our complete outlook. And honestly, most of the jobs which can be done out of the office, can be done while on the go, can be done sitting at your village, are allowed to do. And the first thing we downloaded and offloaded was the engineering and design capability. No need to come to office. Of accounting procedures, no need to come to office. Wherever you want to go, go and work. But this has to consider a lot of changes in our systems, culture, processes, and a lot of flexibility was to be given. Then all those things, a 9 to 5 or 9 to 6 culture has vanished away. And we experienced an entirely different thing, except which is the assembly line function, which we can't send to the home and gig economy, but it was only the mindset game, and we never realized that we were doing something on the gig economy itself. Many of our processes were done by the short-term people, flexi people, project-based people. But then when this buzzword came into the picture, we realized, okay, there's a lot of opportunity to go for flexibility, lot of opportunity to go for the project-based assignment. A lot of opportunity can go for the freelancing. The basic problem which we initially face, the finding the right talent who will be looking for this such type of assignment, because this is another taboo in our country, that people look for full-time safe job. So full-time safe job to going to flexi type of gig type of job, where how many days you want to work, you work, or how many days flexibility is needed by the organization, it moves on. Otherwise, if you don't mutually, it's not mutually acceptable, it parts the way. But yes, doing these things, there was another things which we came across, that the contracting and the legal processes for these people were also very new to us. We never realized that
Yes.
these things can be officially legalized and can be contractualized. Yes, this has led to organization to become a gig-friendly mindset for the top to bottom. Focus on jobs, not on the people. Earlier, we used to focus more on the people, but now we focus more on the job SLAs and deliveries. And then this is the leading to a lot of automation and AI based experiences also, so that all the across the organization experiences are the same, irrespective of the function location. Just to inform you, we are a 26,000 people organization spread over 72 locations across the globe. So giving the same experience, then technology plays its own role. uh, Flexibility was another things which we never realized before pandemic. Then the self-service models on the automation on the SAP success factor become very popular, which were not being popular when we were working in the compartments and offices. Mobile access of the database facility, it has its own limitation of the security safety, but IT team takes care of all those firewalls and security systems, so that mobile access of everything is available across the globe. Uh, Earlier, we used to send a lot of papers also, and that become digitalized, and documentation become a completely digitalized. And the wish list of paperless office came as digital documents. A lot of personalization, and the worst and the last thing I should mention, when we experienced it, we realized that the employee wellness, health, and safety is also a very major concern, and there were a lot of breakdowns across the organization, because as an brick and mortar organization, we used to focus people on the within the campus, within the four walls and boundaries in the premises, and this become a very unique requirement across to tie up with the different wellness and mindfulness organization to take care of employees and their families, because these all are the things which came as a surprise, and which grown along with the model which we adopted. And currently we are focusing on 40% and 60% model, where 60% we, because of the manufacturing setup, we will going ahead with the permanent people, and 40% with the gig and flexi, part-time, work from home, all those mixed combinations. And right now we are around 15% across. We hope to reach 40% in due course of time.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Anadia. Actually, you've kind of answered, my next question, which was according to, how can an organization be prepared for a changing workforce? And yours is a very, very good example. As you said, 100% it was traditional working, work from office. It was never, working from home. So you've touched upon a lot, what you've done
Uh,
in your organization. Yeah.
Neha, I should not mention, but if sometime for some reason, if you allow a male person before pandemic to work from home and permit, it used to become the talk of the organization. XYZ has allowed his male colleague to work from home, and that was a taboo. Work from home, impossible in
I
a
agree.
manufacturing organization. And now my managing director and group CEO, last 1.5 year, 8 months, he has not visited to any offices, any plants, and work run like better than what it used to be earlier.
Yeah, that's correct. Anything, Mr. Yeshav or Dr. Rima, you would like to add? How can an organization be prepared for a changing workforce from the proportion of permanent workers to, gig workers? What new can be introduced, or how can they be prepared more? Yeah.
Sure. Okay, I'll go first, Yasha. Okay. So the first comment that came to mind is I think it has been worldwide acknowledged that the COVID-19 has actually played the role of the chief digital officer for the entire world. This situation has actually forced us to think in so many different ways and accept so many things that were a taboo. For example, even though I have been a part of IT sector and work from home has been pretty much common, but it's not that work from home had been a universally accepted norm, when it comes to regular working. And there were reasons, because office, workplace, they foster a different kind of bond that fuels creativity, that fuels innovation, that makes the workplace a much more humane place as such. And work from home, in a way, takes it all away. Of course, there are lots of advantages also. Now, what is it that can that can induce and influence more of this? Is I think the biggest thing would be the thought process. That it's a very good asset light alternative. So, for example, we take care of the due statutory benefits. We learned how to deal with all of that. We take care of the learning opportunities. Gig workers also have their own set of challenges. For example, back-to-back opportunities, it may not always be so easy for them to get it, which can lead to a lot of stress. And these are times when we have these opportunities to convert those into full-time permanent opportunities as well. And much as we think that, yes, there is a need of flexibility, it's also a fact that there are people who do aspire for a more stable job. So when we are able to accommodate those jobs as well within the same organization setup, that definitely helps. From a government regulatory point of view, I would say it would be interesting to see how the regulatory environment takes care of the gig economy. Especially, how the new labor code can take care of these things. That will probably be beneficial for a lot of people. A lot of staff working for the aggregators will also benefit from that. So I think from the government front, as and when there are changes to the statutory norms, we'll see this trend emerging more and more.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Rima. So,
Yeah. Sorry, if I may
Mr.
just
Yusuf, to
add,
you.
if I
Yes.
may just add, so since we touched upon work from home, and I completely we are also in the same situation that Mr. Sinha spoke of, that work from home was a policy document, and they were, it was allowed to go work from home, but no one really took it, and no one really used work from home. And when it really happened, we had 24 hours to actually move from a physical environment to work from home. And I think for an organization never used to work from home, it was a completely different, it was a change in mindset. as to, we can work from home without being physically there for one another. It required a lot of infrastructural upgradation suddenly, because everything was not in-house in your office networks, it was outside, right? Then there was this lot about engagement, because when you are in an office environment, you can have a planned engagement, and suddenly you are everywhere, right? Spread right across the country. And a lot of our colleagues are actually left the place of work and they are actually gone home, right? So how do we also keep people engaged? And then finally we came down to productivity. How do we make this productive? But in this whole exercise, what we realized, and I'm sure, I think people will agree, is that we found people to be far more productive in this working environment than they were earlier. Though we started, I think, invading on their time, and the time between home and family and work got blurred. And I think, that's one of the challenges that I think companies still face today. But which gave us an idea that the fact of gig economy is also geography, right? We suddenly realized that our clients didn't want anyone to come to the location or geography where their offices were. What our clients said is, as long as you get me a talent anywhere in the country, I'm okay. Which probably was not the case pre-COVID. But I think COVID forced clients to sort of adapt. And then it gave us access to talent into tier two, tier three cities, which primarily we were ignoring all this while, right? So I think that's also where a lot of gig also happens, because you can now find talent as and when you need it in any geography that you need today. All you need is a platform. All you need is good connectivity, right? And I think, touching upon what Dr. Rima said, I think one of the areas which I think we still need to work on the gig is the security aspect of it, the benefits and security aspect of it. I think today it is looked at very differently. I need a job to be done, and I'm going to pay someone, but there is no security built around it, right? And I think the wage code bill that the government is bringing out, I think, has got a lot of provisions that is actually bringing a lot of security and safety even to the gig work.
Yeah, even the social security benefit that was announced recently.
Yeah, it covers unorganized people also.
Yes, yes, yes. So, that is one aspect. And as you said, Mr. Yeshav, what kind of policies do according to you, should be introduced to, for the security of the gig workers or to promote the gig culture, according, yeah.
Okay, so like I was referring to, I think today gig workforce have got very, very limited employment rights. Like, minimum wages is some of the key thing that, today in a structured environment we really look at, and that is something that is enforced, right? Health benefits, people are insured, right? Leaves, retirement benefits, right? Those are some of the hygiene that today workers look at, right? But the gig workforce works in a very different model. All of this seems to be missing today, right? The payment that is assured to gig workforce is primarily on the completion of a project. Okay, so which sort of gives them a sense of financial insecurity. If I don't complete a project, I don't get paid, right? So the budget that of this year announced that they would launch a portal to collect data on migrant workers, right? So they said we'll look at social security benefits being extended to platform and gig workers, right? It's spoken of minimum wages being applied to all categories of workers. ESI benefits being provided, right? I'm sure this will give a major boost to gig and contingent workforce. The code on social security that the government has passed, which was supposed to be implemented but has been delayed, right? It provides workers with life and disability cover, accidental insurance, health and maternity benefits. A lot of provisioning has been done, right? I think there is also a code that has been proposed to establish a national social security board, which will supervise and formulate schemes for the well-being of gig and platform workers. So I was also reading somewhere that platform workers gig workers could also have should also have coverage, which the Prime Minister has a lot of schemes that covers. You got the Jan Arogya, you got the Bima Yojana, you got Bima Jivan Jyoti, and all of these. So I think if all of these are also made mandatory for gig employees, I think it'll give them a lot of social security and protection, And that way, I think the gig economy will become far more sustainable than what it really is, I think, today, right?
Yeah.
And one more thing, I think at current, there is no mechanism to really address the issue of disputes, right? Complaints, we hear a lot of complaints about online workers not getting paid because of customer dissatisfaction, or platforms, unilaterally charging payment, and incentive structures being changed, at the mercy of the players, right? Uh, and an individual contractor, unfortunately, does not have an access of union. So there is nothing called collective here, right? Unlike factory or other places where a physical presence gives solidarity to this. This gig economy is dispersed, right? Right across the world, across cities.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
there is nothing wherein they can come together and put forth their demands. I think those are some of the challenges that I see, right? I think one of the things that the gig economy needs to look at is a lot of transparency in the workings of, how they are paid, the algorithms and all of that around it, right? Also is the accountability that, firms have to be accountable to the people that they employ, right? The time of work that they have, and the benefits that they provide, right? Maybe also provide access to workers in terms of creating, unions or bodies that can, sort of, work on their behalf, right? And maybe sometimes even the gig workers can be a part of, some of these platforms that they can be a it could be, a collectively run, or a cooperative that they can be a part of. So somewhere I think the ownership has to come for gig workers for this to be sustainable, is what I feel.
True, true. So yes, on that point, Mr. Yusuf, my next question is actually emerging, from that point where there is no sense of security, or one gig worker might not know the other gig worker. So one person is working from one part of the world, and the other one is working from other part, and there is no union, or there is no office that they kind of meet, or they kind of know that they're working in the same department or same project or things like these. So, well, as I said, employee experience, this is where probably it comes in, has been typically associated with full-time employees, and it does often goes unaddressed for this particular segment. So, Dr. Reema, with gig economy talent becoming and increasingly prevalent in today's workforce, how can an organization deliver optimal experience for them?
Okay, so I think to a great extent, gig economy workers get into this field fully knowing the pros and cons from their side as well. Just like the employers know, similarly, the workers also know. So it is a fact that there would be a huge population which would have come to this field as a matter of choice, and not because there was no other opportunity available for them. So if somebody comes into this field knowing fully that it's by choice, then there are quite a few things that are, that just comes associated with it. In a way, they are aware. I see. My experience has been that they seem to be pretty much self motivated a lot. They know what they are getting in return, the benefit of choice, the benefit of flexibility, which may not always be there with permanent employees. So they do get that. In terms of a good employee experience, I think the biggest thing is when organizations, HR, they try to make it very evident to them as well that they are an integral part of the workforce. So it's a different form of engagement. But when it comes to the work output or work delivery, I don't think there would be too much of a difference. So we hire a lot of people for our proctoring business. We hire a lot of people, gig workers for our outsourcing arm, which deals with US taxation. And the people who come in, when I have interacted with some of them, I have seen that to a great extent, they love this freedom associated with this kind of a job. There are a whole lot of people who may not be very good in communication skills. They may know that it's not so easy for them to get great jobs elsewhere. But the combination that they get here, which is a very good domain knowledge, which is learned over a period of time through training and development, the kind of opportunities that they get in terms of working with foreign clients. So all of them actually help them to cement their expertise and hone their skills for better possibilities in future. We have a huge group of college students who come for these kinds of jobs. That's the majority of the gig workers that they have. For them, it's inherently win-win. It's earning while you are learning, and they just love that aspect. On top of that, when we have these different modules which help them to hone their communication skills, English speaking, of late for our one of our businesses which employ a large number of gig workers, we have actually tried to get in the element of empathy built into all their we do for them, and they realize the difference, the kind of things that they are getting in return. That experience is very valuable for them to become much better professionals in future. So they come back for that time and again. When it comes to the rewards, we try not to make any kind of differentiation because it is output driven. In IT, it is essentially, end output as the core KPI. In BPO, it would be more of a structured nature of job design. It's continuous performance review. So these things are very well structured, maybe because we've been doing it for quite some time. And we see that on the rewarding front, we do not struggle so much because the outputs are pretty clear. They have dedicated HR staff for them to look into their issues, concerns, challenges. In case there are really top talent which is emerging out of that group, we try to absorb them in some of the permanent roles that we have. So when we have a plethora of opportunities for them, when they know that in spite of the fact that not everything is government regulated, but still the organization has put in all the statutory benefits of PF, PSI, etc., in the right form for them. I think that brings in a lot of loyalty. Yes, I'm using that word. Even in this kind of a gig economy setup, also, it does bring in a lot of stability and commitment and loyalty. And we try to have the same pool repeating in different other jobs as well, wherever we can do a near skilling.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Reema. Mr. Anadi, do you want to throw some light on, experience, rewards, and performances since your organization, is new in terms of implementing the gig economy, but how are you managing that particular, part?
Neha, there's no differentiation. It's all the output and result and SLA based rewards. So whether it's a permanent employee or the gig employee or the flexi or part-time or event-based engagement, the rewards are same and there's no differentiation, and it's a similar practice we follow, because if you follow the differentiation, then you will lose sight of many gig workers, and they will feel that they have been cheated, and there won't be any trust with the organization, and they don't feel belonging to the organization, and those all nonsense will start creating. So we don't differentiate between these two type of people. It's all the same for everybody.
Right, right. So thank you so much. Before before moving forward, I just want to inform all our delegates that we will have a 15-minute of Q&A right at the end. So if anybody has any questions from our esteemed panelists, please feel free to write it in the chat box, and we'll take the questions in the end. Right, moving on to our next question. Mr. Anadi, I just want to ask, you did mention about, a blended workforce that you have. Can this particular part, can the gig economy help organizations to manage the challenge of talent scarcity? And if yes, then, which sectors would benefit more or get impacted more?
Can you repeat the question, Neha?
Yeah. So the question is that, the blended workforce that
Yeah.
we are talking about currently, full-time, part-time, or contractual workers, can
Yes.
it help the organization to manage the challenge of talent scarcity? Um, and which sectors would benefit more or get impacted more?
Uh, Impacted, I can't say, Neha. Benefit, yes, I can say the high technology jobs will be benefited more. Absolutely, there is no second thought, because those things which we always thought that we can be done from the within the premises is easily being done at wherever you are on go. So those are the jobs which is easy to. It's a high tech, and earlier it complete mindset was different. Today, you have all the facilities that you just ask for a service provider, and that is also adding to the gig economy. And he or she will organize pick and drop to the your expert place, and expert will be doing on the work and sending it back to you. And you need not to call him or her to your workplace. It's only the partner does all those things based on the frequency requirement and the schedules. So those are the things which is very easy to download. Then of late, you will not believe, Neha, some of my colleague came to me and they wanted to shift their career options. And when I asked what happened, they told ki we have this hobby and we want to pursue this hobby and make becoming a gig worker instead of doing for a full time. We don't regret for those decisions. And Neha, honestly, I keep on meeting a lot of campus guys, and they also give me this feeling, including my own kids, ki Papa, instead of going and joining something, why not I do this gig workers at home? And my son, who is the final year of his engineering studies, last 1 year he has been doing a lot of freelancing and catering to Fortune 500. Three companies he catered to Fortune 500, sitting at home, and this model the component come to him and he work on those component, configure, test, and then send it back to the organization. So those were the things
Wow.
which we never realized. At least in my young age, I never realized कि घर बैठे कुछ हो सकता है. It's not possible. You have to go
Yes.
somewhere, work somewhere. Then colleagues who are the artistic, the creative, they decided to move on and do of their own, and they do very well. There are some hobby related issues which you won't believe. Pandemic led a few of my colleagues who were very good at photography, and they were the female colleagues. They decided to move on this family photography for the families, and they come back to me ki, sir, we are very happy. It's a very niche work we are doing, and we never realized that this can give us such a good recognition and pay package. Remaining on technology side, there are many freelancing. This is including our typical content writing jobs, which we used to do earlier in house. It's outsourced to the freelancers. Graphic designer, it's now outsourced to the freelancers. Web designing, it used to be done by the internal team. Now nobody from the internal team does. Social media marketing and social media campaign, again, it's not being done by the internal team. uh, Delivery and all those businesses I mentioned in my initial statement. And this artificial intelligence, IoT, and robotics developers are also gig workers. They don't need to come to office. Wherever they are contributing, they are giving their 100%. And based on the results, they are being rewarded properly. Another very unique things which I came across recently, the hacking, which is the ethical hacking for your internal security and the safety of the organization, that you don't need your internal resources. It can be done by your expert sitting outside, sitting at his or her place and doing it for you. Rima will agree that the blockchain architect, robotics engineer, VR and AI developers, nothing, they don't need to come to office. They can develop their product, they can develop their algorithm sitting at their home. Photography, I already mentioned. Uh, there is one more thing which is out of organization. A lot of cloud kitchens and freelancing chefs you will find. Earlier, if you host a party at your home, it was difficult to get a person who can arrange the kitchen and cooking for you. But now there's plenty of people available, and they enjoy that. They don't want to work for the great evenings and the festival evenings and social timings. They want to work as per their convenience. When they want, they want. So this cloud kitchen and the celebrity chefs and the chefs at home, it has become a very unique gig worker. It's a male female both combination. There's no gender bias in this. Even if a female cloud kitchen, nobody minds. It's a male cloud kitchen, nobody minds. The chef, nobody minds. The quality and delivery is that important. Ops development, network analyst, gaming also. Many of my kids' colleagues, friends, and the batchmates, they develop the gaming synergies from their home. They test the games from their home, and wherever they are at the holidays location, they are at home, they are traveling, they on the go, they do those things, and they don't bother about the going to the office and working for particular client or particular organization. Resume writer in our HR fraternity is the new things which came as a surprise to me. There are plenty of, when I was digging for gig economy, then I realized there are plenty of CV and resume writers are available in the market, and you don't need to look for your resume yourself. There are people who can write your resume much better than what you thought you can write.
True.
What else?
I
And then
completely, yes.
yeah, and the project related issues where the specialists are required, you don't need to hire, and they also don't want to work for a compartments and this fixed office timing and fixed office. So all those things. And there is another in pandemic has led to something else, which is the home Medicare and home pharmacy and pharmacy related facility, which has become another set of gig workers, which was not existing before pandemic. Uh, you won't believe edutech and fintech have brought a lot of gig economy gig workers to the
Yes.
platter. The edutech, I run few of the schools, and none of my teachers goes to school last 1.5 years. Even somebody moved on, somebody moved in. We use the gig economy teachers also, gig teachers also to fill the gap. Okay, I know you are not, you have your family, you don't want to do anything, but can you take over the as an interim teacher for my school for this special subject for 2 months, 3 months, till the time I bring a person or a teacher who can in turn contribute to my regular school. So those were the another things which we never realized which will be there. Then a lot of handyman related jobs are again the gig economy. Um, and one this delivery model, this Zomato, Uber, Airbnb, all
Yes.
those are
Yes.
creating a lot of gig economy jobs, and these are the jobs which are plenty of available. There's a need of a person. Even you will come to know in the many of our HR fraternity people will tell you that there are organization dedicated to interim managers, and I came across few of the positions for my own organization where I wanted an interim C-level person, and I approached them and I got this interim. That interim was because they don't want to work for a full time or long time. They want to enjoy for 6, 7, 8 months and year time, then come back to work for a year or so, and then again go back and pursue their hobbies, their travel, their families, whatever they want to do. So this was earlier not never thought of the options, but now it is a thought of option. And we know there is no problem. Something happened, some casualty happened during this pandemic period. We have interim people available to cater those needs immediately in the market, and we can take them on board. But yes, you need to be some tweaking your complete model, employment model, organization, and the people management and all those flexibility, etc. You need to bring. Because if you bring an interim manager or interim C-level person, and internal organization don't support him or her, it's not going to deliver anything.
Thank you, Mr. Anadi. I mean, yes, there are so many benefits and so many good things in apart from working. So when we were working full time, yes, people did not focus on their passion and anything apart from
Yeah.
work. It was a 9 to 5 or a 9 to 6 job, and rest of the time just either went in traveling or family. Now people are moving towards gig working and following their passions, and this way probably it's helping to increase the productivity, the quality of work, and they're enjoying the work as well at the
Yeah.
same time.
Yeah.
So yes, over
Neha,
to you, Mr.
one
Yes. Yeah.
very pertinent example. If 3 years down the
Mm-hmm.
line somebody asked me to connect on WebEx, it was a project for me, and I need an IT support always to connect to WebEx. Without IT person sitting across or standing side by me, I was not able to connect WebEx. I confess it. But today I don't need anybody. There are plenty of platform and everything we can use. My family, my wife, my daughter, my son, everybody can use freely. Absolutely, no issue.
True. I completely agree with you. I think we all have gone through that phase where, in fact, if we talk about this particular conference itself, it was always a physical conference until we
Yeah.
used to have physical conferences until last year. And it was always in the loop that we will have, an system-based conference where we could do it online. But I think this particular pandemic has forced us to be online, and and it has actually come out with a lot of good things also. Over to you, Mr. Yesha. While we are discussing good things, probably my second last question is: any challenges that an organization faces while implementing gig economy or yeah.
You're asking me?
I
Sorry,
think the
I'm
question
going
is to
to Mr.
me.
Yesha. Yes,
Okay, okay.
yes,
But
yes.
it was really fascinating listening to Mr. Sinha on the way gig has permeated the length and breadth of jobs today, right? But I just want to make a distinction here that I think there is an area above which the skill of a person comes into question, and then he can choose to be a freelancer, or he wants to choose to sell his skill at a particular price that he believes it demands, right? And then, like we said, I want to work for some time and I want to take off for some time because I want to pursue other hobbies. But there is also a salary band below which people have to work. There is also a gig that exists there, and that's a very large gig economy, right? Where they are not necessarily technically qualified, but they need a job, so they're doing their job. And I think uh, in that space, social security, I think in that space, benefits, I think are areas that we really need to sort of look at. The gig economy needs a lot of support in that area. But wherein people are, like we spoke of a chef, right? A highly qualified chef, I think he can demand the price that he wants. He can decide when he wants to work, where he wants to work, for how long he wants to work. But people who are at minimum wages, salaries, and below, right? Let's say a cab driver with Uber, right? I don't think he's got a choice to actually decide when he will work, where he will not work. He has to work, right? What happens to his benefits? Are those benefits taken care of? I think that's where organizations probably have a larger role to play, because many times it is purely on a task completion basis. So you are an independent contractor to me, right? So I've given you a task, you complete a task, and I pay you for that task, and beyond that there is no relationship here. So I think, can organizations go beyond to look at relationship? And I think Dr. Rima also mentioned there that there are, for example, if you look at flexi staffing, many times it is considered to be a part of the gig economy, but flexi staffing in that sense, which is tripartite agreements, are much more structured. It's much more structured. It gives a lot of security benefit to people, right? And that's how people look at it, saying, okay, I not only get to work with a brand, but I'm also covered properly. I get a lot of support financially as well as from a social security perspective, and then thereafter I look beyond, right? So I think those are some of the areas that companies need to look at, as to how do you look at gig? Is it simply a work, a task orientation, or are you going beyond to develop workers that continue to work for you, right? I think those are some of the thoughts that I had, Neha.
Neha,
Thank
can
you,
I
Mr.
just
Yesha.
add one point to the challenge
Yes, yes,
aspect?
sure.
Right. So yes, all of these things that Yesha mentioned are correct. I feel even I believe in those. There is one more factor, which is all about the social intimacy. End of the day, we are all social animals, and workplaces do foster a social ecosystem also for us. It's an outlet. We do things. We have our passions. We go for dining out experience. We come back and share with colleagues so many things, right? Movies, passions, etc. So office used to foster all of that. Anyways, for permanent employees also, that space right now is gone, and somewhere there is a struggle to create a sense of social intimacy. Now when everything is virtual, even for that set of employees, creating this is tough. And when you talk about gig workers who are available to us for a shorter period, then trying to create that virtual social intimacy is tougher. But we also know that for the best productivity purposes and to get the best out of people and for people to get the best out of their ambition and aspiration, it's important to have that feeling of being embedded in the organization culture. That I think takes a hit to a great extent.
Neha, I
Thank
will
you.
also add one
Yeah.
thing. There is a silver lining between using this gig workers or employing these gig workers as a business case basis. But what Yeshab and Rima was sharing, it should not become a tool of exploitation of the down the line workers, because high skilled and high competence people will be able to sell themselves, but the low skill and the low status of job, it should not be subject to the exploitation by the employers and the organization. That is one thing which is very clear.
Completely. I completely agree with that. So, just moving on to the last question of the session, which is a very important question, which I would like to ask Dr. Rima. One of the benefits, yes, we were discussing about the gig economy culture is flexibility in terms of selecting the work hours or selecting the working month or time period. And I believe that this can also be a blessing in disguise for most of the women, specifically in India, who have a lot of household and other responsibilities. Do you believe that gig economy has the potential to include or involve a significant, number of employment for women too?
Yes, Neha. So I will talk about the research paper I had co-authored last year, and I presented that in the TIS conference on diversity. It was a framework that we had created where we say there are 12 very critical factors for the ascension of women leaders in corporates. One of them was support of family and support of partner. So we know that there is a lot of issues that, or rather, to put it in to give it a different tonality. So a lot of women progress in life when they have the support of their family, of their partners. And then there are women who go through varied experiences, right? Some get the support, some do not get the support, but that doesn't become a huge deterrent. And that sometimes does become a deterrent, which is why we see dropouts post marriage, post maternity. So when this gig economy is actually empowering people to take care of their flexibility needs, definitely that opens up new vistas. And for a second, if I just take the women, the gender diversity element out of it,
Yes,
typically in IT
yes.
sector, you would find gig workers in coding skills, data management, web designing, graphic design we spoke of, digital marketing, data science, processing, all of it, right? Now, according to industry estimates, there are about 15 lakh engineers who graduate in India every year, out of which about 2.5 lakh students land relevant jobs in technical domains. What happens to the 12.5 lakhs? So, yes, over a period of time, they do get into meaningful roles, but till then, so acceptance of the gig economy definitely opens up new vistas for them. And now, when we think of a huge number of women in this pool who have to drop out because they have no choice, suddenly the gig economy is actually showing them the path to still make it big in this world. So I think it's a huge opportunity for women folks also. There are some studies that have gotten published that a lot of women have been affected in the pandemic in terms of job loss and all of that. So I think if we have more of openness for this particular aspect, if we have specialized recruitment portals for gig workers, men, women alike can be a part of it, and we can have more of employment opportunities.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Rima. I think we are just, at the end of our session. Any closing points that, anybody likes to add before we finish the session today?
I can only say that gig economy is here to stay, and I think the flexibility part and the agility is definitely going to help organizations and the workers in the long run. So I would say we should welcome with open arms, keeping in mind that the regulatory aspects have to be edged out much better in most of the sectors.
So, thank you. Mr. Yeshab, do you want to add anything?
I was just thinking of a term that is getting used now, saying liquid workforce, right? Which is how blended your workforce can be. So, from a very, very traditional perm only, you came to perm plus temp, and temp being flexible. Then from there, you came to, freelancers. And now we're talking of gig. I think each organization today probably has to look at what is the blend they want, right? And which is the blend that suits them most. For example, a manufacturing organization, a services organization, or maybe someone in the IT, BPO sector, I think their needs are completely different, right? So it's not that everyone has to jump on the bandwagon with the same amount of focus on gig, but it depends on how the organization views it. But I think this liquid workforce, which is, are you able to understand your needs and accordingly look at where it has to be perm, where it has to be temp, and where it has to be independent contractors, where it has to be gig. I think it's left to the organization. But I agree with Doctor. I think this is an economy that's poised to really grow. Very, very nascent. I think the government also has a role to play in bringing a lot of safeguards. But it is there. I think it's the business for the future. It's the economy for the future.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Chair. I was just looking for questions. I believe we have answered all the questions already. So over to you, Shilpa. I am just waiting for the MC here. Shilpa, are you there? I think I would like to thank you all for coming in today, and we had a very, very insightful discussion. Thank you so much for your time today. I'm not 100% sure, how are we going to take this forward. I'm just waiting for someone from the team.
I think while that gets done, I must say that it was a very enjoyable session, and listening to Anadi and Yeshav and, knowing what's happening in the other industries as well. That was a delightful experience. So thanks for getting all of us together.
Thanks, Rima, and thanks, Yeshav, and thanks, Neha. And I'm taking one point from Rima's deliberation, that what's happening to the second career options. There are few organizations which are working for the second career option. Even when I was not aware there is a gig economy, around 14 years back, I worked on those options. But it was not a very high profile assignment. It was, I was part of the large retail setup in the India, and the second career option given to the nearby females of the where we have the stores suitable to their timings and their flexibility. That was the experiment we did, and it was a very successful experiment, and but it was you can understand it was not a very high profile job. If somebody has left a very high profile job and then she wanted to come back to second career, but yes, she can start with and look for other options. That's our MC is there. Oh, great.
Before the MC comes in, I think it was a really enjoyable and thoughtful session. I really thank Dr. Rima and Mr. Nadit for really sharing your thoughts. Lot that I learned from the two industries that you represent. Otherwise, a very enjoyable experience. Thank you.
And thank
Yes.
you to Neha as well for sequencing the questions and, how you moved very flawlessly and effortlessly from one speaker to another. That was just awesome.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Rima. Thank you, Mr. Yeshav, and thank you, Mr. Nadi. Thank you so much for your time today. It was a pleasure speaking to you. And, once we get over with this, we'll definitely get in touch. And it was really nice, to hear all the inputs that we've received. I'm sure our delegates would have also, got some ideas, from Mr. Nadi, as he said, from a completely traditional organization going into a blended workforce now, and how he has implemented or the gig culture into the workforce. So I'm sure it that did give a lot of information. Thank you so much. Shilpa, over to you now.
Thank you so much, Neha ji, and thanks to all the panelists because you people have really came up with this session as an enlightening one, and all our participants also enjoyed and gained a lot of knowledge what you have shared. So thank you so much for joining us in this session and in this Work Vision 2021, because this is what we all are looking forward to, because post pandemic a lot of the things has to be taken care of, and this is surely one of them. So thank you so much for joining us today. To all our participants also, I would like to thank you for joining us in this today's session. Tomorrow also we are going to have the session in which we are going to talk about the art of scaling up, which is very important. And also we'll be taking up the leveraging technology in HR, that how technology is taking place in HR now. So tomorrow also we are going to have a very wonderful session. So for today, thanks a lot. Shilpa Bhavna also signs up from this side. And on behalf of ASSOCHAM India, I would like to thank you all for being here. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you.